Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Alundra. It's time to begin the overall warm-up for the 5th Crest dungeon. Like most Zelda games, the hoops you have to jump through to get from dungeon to dungeon increase in complexity as the game goes on. This obviously is no exception. So this is the first of the Crest dungeons that you actually have to do some sort of preliminary dungeon crawling before you actually get to the Crest dungeon itself. In this case, we have to deal with the Underground Waterway. You can tell this counts as a full dungeon because it contains its own life vessel right here. Pretty easy to find, obviously. You just need to be able to make the jumps across all of these little logs, and of course you have to stay on this log, as you're about to see, in order to get to the next platform we'll need to get to complete this dungeon. This is actually what I believe to be the hardest part of this particular dungeon. This first jump right here, being able to stay on that log through the waterfall all the way down to that platform over here, allowing you to access that switch and this set of steps. This will be required to complete this dungeon later on. You'll see it right here. Obviously, this is what we need to do to progress. Anyway, the 5th Crest dungeon itself is a bit of a different character than the Coastal Cave or Lars's Crypt. It's actually what I believe to be the most interesting Crest dungeon, other than Lars's Crypt itself, which has a lot of neat sort of horror tropes attached to it. So, but we'll see that later. We've got sort of something more conventional to deal with before that in this little sewer area. A chest contains an herb, we don't really care about that. Now we're going to go down. First we're going to the left, then we're going to go down. We've got more of these logs to deal with. Getting a bit of a Super Mario Bros. 2 flashback here. Hooray, more herbs. I really need this. I guess I could actually use an herb to refill those last 4 bits of health I'm missing. You're supposed to pay attention while you're jumping past these waterfalls the first time around in the logs and note which one the floating platform is over, but I guess because I'm using guide, and B, because the actual jump platforming is a little frantic, I wasn't really paying that much attention. I guess I didn't really point it out in the post-commentary either, but now you know. These guys I have not seen before, and I don't know when we see them again. I don't know what their kill condition is. Sometimes they just disappear in a puff. Sometimes they explode like that in a really graphic way with bulging eyes. It creeps me the hell out. Anyway, there's a chest, but we can't get there yet. I'll show that off later, because it is in fact quite important. What we actually have to do is pretty straightforward. We're going to hit that switch and get into this gate over here. I know, pretty straightforward for this game, right? I did claim that the game increases in complexity as we go, and I promise the game will deliver on this, as we continue to see in this dungeon itself. This is our first encounter with the imp enemies. Again, we saw them immediately after we got out of Maya's dream. They don't do very much damage. I think they only do, 2 points of damage on contact, but they're very fast, and you don't get a lot of mercy and vulnerability in Alundra, so it's pretty easy for them if you're not paying attention to do a lot of damage to you really quickly. Thankfully, you do not take damage from having a log hit you in the head. That was just my own stupidity. I guess the game could be a jerk and make us take the same damage we take when we hit with a spike ball, but we don't. Alright, here we go. We are at some kind of machinery, which they are nice enough to tell us is extremely important, which means it's our duty as heroes to destroy it. Of course, it takes some incidental damage while we're fighting the guys. I don't know if there's any special dialogue if you blow up the machinery while some of them are still alive in the fight. But what we have to do next should be pretty obvious if you've ever played a video game before. We just drain some water, meaning the goal is to find a room that used to have water that no longer does, which will allow us to progress. First thing we need to do, though, is actually jump down this waterfall over here and land on that treasure chest we saw previously, which contains the 35th Gilded Falcon. This we will need later. I should say, that's enough to pick up the next reward from Captain Merrick, so when we're passing by that area, we can pick up a life vessel. I actually think we'll be able to get up to 40 before we need to do that again, because there are 3 that we didn't pick up in the Riverside Bar, and there's at least 2 more we're going to get in this episode alone. So we'll also be able to get the last equipable item he's going to give to us. And what we need to do is, again, look for that room that's been drained now that we blew up that machinery. You can fall into those little whirlpools that you keep seeing the logs drop into. They just drop you back to previous rooms in the dungeon, so that isn't terribly productive. What you actually need to do here is make your way back up, and we're going to go back to the room where we picked up the first herb chest early on. The actual dungeon, or Neru's lair, I guess is to the north, so intuitively you should be proceeding to the general northward in general while trying to solve this dungeon, if you're just at a loss as to where you should go. I, of course, get hit with a spike ball, because I do that a lot, so I guess it wouldn't be a dungeon if I didn't fulfill that requirement. But alright, that's all there was to the Underground Waterway. Now we've got to do the dungeon proper, which is overall pretty interesting. Here we can knock down this rock and sort of blow up the rock below it, which actually allows us to access a route we could have used to get to this area previously. And you can see there's a teleport archway that we could have used to get through here if we had opened up the archways a little bit earlier. I guess I'll show off this inside room. These 8 archways each lead to one of the ones in the world map. This is a save point. There's no particular indication as to which arch leads to which one on the world map, which is annoying. It's not nearly as convenient as like the flute and Link to the Past. Obviously, I have not activated any of the other archways. You need to go in them at least once on the overworld before you can access them as teleports. I just thought I'd show that, since we did just, in fact, activate these archways in the previous episode. But alright, next thing we can do. You can actually access this area early on. In fact, you can do this as soon as you complete the Ancient Temple, I believe. But you can't really do anything interesting until after you have the Spring Beam. I think there's a Gilded Falcon you can pick up here, which I'll be showing a little bit later, but otherwise, nothing interesting you can do. There's, of course, another Gilded Falcon there in the corner. That's number 36 that we can get quite easily now. Again, any chests I don't pick up just contain items that we already are full up on, or cannot actually be accessed easily now, even though we can see them on the map. So yeah, this we can actually do. This event flag we can trigger starting any point after the Ancient Temple, but you obviously can't complete this dungeon until you have the Spring Beam. Or rather, until the Underground Waterway opens up and allows you to access the bottom left portion of this area. Which we will need to do, and exactly why we need to do that we'll see a little bit later. This door is actually surprisingly difficult to get into. You have to do that in one smooth motion. Yeah, okay. This is the Gilded Falcon I was talking about before. We could have come here and picked this up at any point after the completion of the Sand Temple, and I'll show how we get here in a little bit, as sort of part of a different objective. We could have picked up that Falcon and actually met the little imp guys before we saw them after Maya's dream, so that's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of sequence breaking you can do in the game as a whole. You can actually trigger this event flag too, since the only requirement is entering the right foot over there and meeting that other imp. So yeah, that's Miming, the king of the imp guys. And he's about to sort of incidentally give us our next objective. So yeah, we're going to watch very slowly these little imps crawl all around this giant thing. This giant thing is not Nerud, it is in fact just a structure. Nerud is a giant, we will meet him eventually. Nerud, Nyrud, Nerud, Naruto? No. Sorry, just occupying myself as this incredibly slow scene plays out. So yeah, these guys are going to show you 3 stone heads, and it's going to be quite obvious that these 3 stone heads are responsible for the locking of all the doors on this stone statue. So our next objective, after this guy is a real jerk and knocks us off this foot, is to find and destroy those 3 stone heads. We saw one of them as we were climbing around the northeast portion of this area looking for the Gilded Falcon, so I suppose I could have just gone up into that corner and picked up the Gilded Falcon now that I actually have to go back up there anyway. So yeah, but in order to actually get up to the ones on the left, you need the Spring Beam and access to the left side of this area. So again, this isn't something you can complete until you're this far in the game, more or less. Despite the fact that we can arrive here incredibly early. So yeah, there's also one up to the upper left, but there doesn't seem to be any obvious way to get up there. And this is one of many reasons why this particular dungeon was what made me give up the game when I played it without the benefit of a guide when I was much, much younger. I probably could figure this out just from arbitrary exploration in the general area now that I'm a little bit older, but this is actually pretty obnoxious in terms of sort of overall game design and subverting your expectations as to how to complete an objective. Again, it's not difficult in the sense, you know, of like old Sierra adventure games where you have to click on every single pixel and do things, you know, hours before you're required to use them in the game, but still annoying. Here's the second one. Again, I pointed this out next to the old Gilded Falcon chest. The third one, however, is not accessible through any path you can access on this exact screen or through the Underground Waterway. The actual path to get there is not only hidden, but on a completely different screen. So yeah, I got lost a little bit because I sort of forgot where I was supposed to be going, but I'll get back on track in a minute. We'll cut as soon as I leave this screen to the closest area to that statue itself. And again, I'll read the sign here just to show off where we are. So yeah, we're to the east of the Ice Manor in the Magascar area. This is the same path we would normally take to get to the upper desert area, or somewhere very close to it, from the upper side, close to where we picked up the sluice gate key. So yeah, over here there's a hidden passage between these 2 trees. We could have accessed this at any point as soon as we were able to get to the northern region of the Anoa area, which means we could have found this pretty early on. We just didn't. which I guess makes it not as obnoxious as it could be, just because I'm not, you know, freely exploring, since I am, in fact, you know, using a very direct walkthrough to be sort of consistent with how you would, you know, play through various portions of this game as they become relevant. I suppose it's entirely possible that nearly anybody who plays this game would find that, but it's I don't know, it's weird to me to think that you had to go somewhere that you wouldn't normally, that you would be led on a scavenger hunt for something that you couldn't access from that screen at all. It's just strange to me. Anyway, here's the other path you can take to get to Nerude's lair. You can go through the upper desert and leave through the north path. Again, this is exactly how you would normally get here if you wanted to sort of scope this place out and do a recon mission after you finish the Sand Temple. And now, obviously, now we can re-enter Nerude's lair, now that we've cleared the 3 statues, and yeah, in we go. Alright, hello again. Dharmaka. Don't know what that means. I assume it's related to Dharma, which is a Buddhist term. They must be, I don't know, Buddhist monks or something, whatever. Anyway, moving here to the right, we can pick up another herb. I know, exactly what we needed, right? I guess I wasn't smart enough. I didn't notice I had taken so much damage at this point. I guess from wandering around trying to blow up all those three stone heads. Whatever. That barrel, I don't know why it's there. I think it's just to allow you to get back out. Alright, so this is effectively what characterizes this particular dungeon. Aside from the stone heads, which you're going to be seeing a lot more of, you're going to be interacting with these little imp guys on nearly every unique screen in this dungeon. And I guess it makes it a little bit more interesting because we haven't really interacted with anything in a dungeon other than a dream dungeon, except for Lars's crypt, which is part of the reason why I actually kind of like this dungeon. Or I should say it's one of my favorite overworld dungeons other than the crypt itself. So these guys aren't too hard. We can even use short-range weapons. They're not terribly aggressive. It's pretty easy to dodge the little pieces they throw off themselves, and they have a lot of item drops. So, yeah, handle that, and he will now also drop one of those stone heads. Now, there are 2 really stupid reasons why I take damage here. Or I should say two things I'm forgetting that I really shouldn't. One is that I shouldn't be taking damage at all, because I should be attacking the head from this platform over here, which I do eventually figure out. The second one I'll talk about next episode, because we will in fact be fighting many, many, many more of these, and they do take 15 hits to kill, which is pretty damn annoying once you start fighting them in bulk. Alright, now we're back to... We've got a few standard puzzle rooms to close out this portion of the dungeon in the episode. First thing we want to do is take this barrel past these spiked balls and toss it onto this ledge. If you get hit and fall down, you'll just drop back down to the previous room, so no big deal. You'll reset the puzzle, which can get annoying after a while, but, you know, whatever. It's pretty par for the course of this game. You should be used to it by now. So jumping up here, the next thing we want to do is put this barrel somewhere where we can use it as a stepping stone to the ledge to the right. And there we go, thank you. That could have gone really badly, but I guess the worst thing it would have done is I would have had to start over again and use another take. Alright, so this is another kind of interesting puzzle that illustrates the difference between this dungeon and how the interactions with the little imp monsters changes how you address... how you address the solutions to puzzles in this dungeon itself. So, you'll notice that he hit that switch, which caused 4 golems to drop on us. Now we're going to kill them, and wonder what that second switch does. If we kill all 4 more immediately drop back down. The actual solution to this puzzle is, as soon as they zone for the first time and leave from the right side, leave and re-enter, even if you haven't killed all 4 golems. If you do, this time the imp will hit the second switch, which apparently also allows you to progress, which is pretty stupid, but whatever. I don't know, if it wasn't for coincidence, no RPG hero would ever succeed in anything. And yes, I realized there was a brief skip there. I glued 2 recording sessions together. Alright, another standard puzzle room. Hit that switch, drop the barrel on this platform, use it to get over this little ledge here. Nothing out of the ordinary for this game. Moving here, this puzzle I already solved during the previous recording session, but I'll show it again now, now that I'm stapling the 2 together. We want to move these 5 statues in such a way that 4 of them are covering the switches, and then hit the 5th one ourselves. It doesn't matter that the 5th switch sort of goes back to off when we walk off of it. All that matters is that all 5 are pressed at any point. Okay, so this chest contains an herb, so I finally noticed I took enough damage to care about my health and use one before I opened up the chest. And this here contains the key to the gate, which you might have noticed in passing in the room with the 2 switches that we got through previously. And that is actually the last room, I believe, for this portion of the dungeon. We will do a little climbing on the outside of the giant statue itself, piece by piece, and we've basically just cleared the first tier. So we will unlock this door and will allow us to progress to basically the abdomen, the second tier. Alright, that's a save point, so I believe this is a good enough time to stop. We will continue on the next episode of Let's Play Alundra. I will see you then.